For a long time, I've been wondering how I know that microgold exists in sediments and streams. But it's just hard to catch because it's so tiny that it basically doesn't settle at all in a water current and therefore can't be caught in a regular sluice box. Some time ago, I started a centrifuge project, which you can see in the video. It's not a perfect system, but in principle it works for separating gold. The centrifuge basically works by creating centrifugal force, which basically increases the weight of the particles contained in the water. And since microgold settles very slowly, the increased G-force allows it to settle on the walls of the centrifuge drum. The increased G-force from the centrifugal force should capture the extremely fine gold that would normally wash away with the water current during regular panning. Since the gold doesn't settle on the riffles in the sluice at all, it basically behaves like a liquid. Well, and the centrifugal force presses these fine particles against the drum walls due to the G-force, and they stay there. Now let's get to what's happening in the video. Here you can see the very first startup, and of course the pin on the shaft that drives the drum sheared off. So you see, you know how it is. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. So I drilled a second hole into the shaft, and now I'm putting an improvised pin made of welding wire in there so that the motor can spin the drum. Problem fixed, we can continue with the experiments. The motor is spinning, the drum is spinning, everything seems to be okay. Of course, for the centrifuge to work and wash away the lighter sediment, we need to have a pump that will force water into the drum. I can't just throw the pump into the water tank because sand also drains into that tank and the pump would get clogged or the impeller would wear out. So I placed it on an improvised styrofoam float. Here I'm adding a control valve to regulate the water flow, since it also matters how much water is let into the drum so there isn't a storm in there for it to work optimally. Quite simply, I secure the valve with rubber tape so I don't overcomplicate things. I'm not going to do some fancy plumbing here. This is completely sufficient for testing. And it works. Even though you can see in the video that during assembly one end broke off. But we fixed that without any problems. It just took me longer. But when developing prototypes, not everything goes right on the first try. Some small problems always have to be tweaked on the fly, so that's a normal thing when tuning prototypes and trying something new. Here you can see how that valve fell off. Well, and I don't really care, and I keep going. I'll finish it later anyway. Well, here it's being repaired again. Blah, blah, blah. There's probably nothing interesting about it. Well, I'll tape it up now with rubber tape, but this time I'll put a thicker layer so it holds better and doesn't fall off. And it fell off also because I put the tape too close to the edge and it couldn't catch on the edge of that nut. The rubber tape basically slipped on the smooth surface. Here I'm already putting the machine into operation. Of course, I have to pour some water into that collection container so that the pump doesn't touch the sand at the bottom, so it doesn't wear out the impeller on the pump, because that's game over then. Now the first look-see. I'm plugging in the pump, and well, I'll adjust the water flow as needed. After all, it's an experiment, not a running system yet. And we can slowly throw in the sand we brought from the river. So slowly the toy is working. It's such a ferruginous sand where there's a potential that microgold could really be there, since it's a heavy fraction that the river itself concentrated in places. Here you can see how nicely the water rises up the drum due to centrifugal force and splashes onto the edge of the container. And of course those grooves capture magnetite, which is the heaviest, and microgold should also be captured among it. I'm basically just throwing material in there. Well, it's not ideal, but it's enough for a test. It will still need to be improved. Here I sped up the video because we're not going to watch one shot for 300 years over and over. It was extremely long. Just during this experimenting, it occurred to me how to even get to that microgold when I put it in the pan, so I can even see it, and whether it's even possible to see it like this, or somehow process it in the pan so that it comes out to the edge of the pan like regular panable gold. We are nearing the end. We are taking the machine apart. Here you can see how the heavy fraction settled in the grooves, which the centrifugal force pressed to the edges of the drum. And in those bands, theoretically, microgold should be settled. I'm taking the drum out, and we're going to examine it. Here you can see how the magnetite is captured there, even though the camera somehow highlights the red color. But here you can see how the magnetite black sand stands out, and microgold should be captured among it. Gold in microscopic form is so strange that it doesn't have a yellow color at all. So it's all the more difficult to even get to something until you look at it under a microscope to see if it's gold or not. I'm rinsing the capture grooves with a stream of water so that all that heavy sediment is washed out and flushed to the bottom of that container. Here you can see it nicely. I'll let it settle then. That's not in the video anymore. Well, and we're going to put it in the pan through a sieve, because a few pebbles remained there which I didn't remove when sorting the gravel. Well, and I'll flush it into the gold pan, and we'll see what's in there. Of course, I'll check the pebbles to see if we didn't pick up some nugget, but there was nothing there, so it's fine. Well, and here we have the final product. You can see there that it's full of magnetite black sand, except that microgold can only be seen under a microscope, so only like this.